The summer sun was high in the sky when Marcus Thompson guided his black SUV along the coastal highway leading to Pine Harbor. His hands rested easily on the steering wheel, his FBI badge safely tucked away in his wallet. Unnecessary for what was supposed to be a peaceful family vacation. In the passenger seat, his wife Angela checked their rental confirmation on her phone, while their children, Zara and Marcus Jr., watched the ocean views from the back seat. "Look at those waves, Dad." Marcus Jr. pressed his face against the window, his 10-year-old enthusiasm making everyone smile. 14-year-old Zara tried to maintain her teenage coolness, but even she couldn't hide her excitement as seagulls soared past their car. The Thompson family had spent months planning this vacation. Marcus had finally managed to take a full week off from his demanding job at the FBI's Washington field office, where he specialized in white-collar crime investigations. Angela, a high school counselor, had specifically chosen Pine Harbor for its quiet beaches and small-town charm, a perfect escape from their busy lives in D.C. As they drove through the town's main street, they noticed the typical scenes of a beach community: ice cream shops with colorful awnings, souvenir stores displaying beach toys in their windows, and families walking around in swimsuits and flip-flops. The town looked exactly like the pictures they'd seen online, perhaps even more charming in person. "We should stop at the grocery store first," Angela suggested, pointing to a large supermarket just ahead. "We can stock up before heading to the rental house." Marcus nodded, smoothly turning the SUV into the parking lot of Harbor Market, the town's biggest grocery store. The family climbed out of the car, stretching their legs after the long drive. Marcus Jr. bounced excitedly on his toes, wearing his favorite NASA t-shirt and shorts. Zara adjusted her purple headband, checking her reflection in the car window. They were dressed casually, Marcus in khaki shorts and a polo shirt, Angela in a flowing summer dress with comfortable sandals. Inside the store, they grabbed a shopping cart and moved through the aisles as a family unit, something they rarely got to do back home due to their busy schedules. Marcus Jr. begged for his favorite cereals while Zara helped her mother pick out fresh fruits. Marcus handled the grill items. He had plans for several beach barbecues during their stay. "Don't forget the sunscreen," Angela reminded them, adding 3 bottles to their cart. "The beach house has a private pathway to the shore, and I know these two will be in the water from sunrise to sunset." She ruffled Marcus Jr.'s hair affectionately. Their cart filled up quickly. Breakfast foods, sandwich ingredients, snacks, drinks, and everything else they'd need for a week of beach life. At the checkout counter, the elderly cashier smiled warmly at them, making small talk about the perfect beach weather they were having. "You folks visiting?" she asked kindly as she scanned their items. "Yes, we're here for a week," Angela replied with a smile. "First time in Pine Harbor." "Well, you picked a wonderful time to visit. The water's perfect this time of year," the cashier said, continuing to scan their groceries. Marcus paid with their credit card, and they began wheeling their loaded cart toward the exit. The automatic doors slid open, letting in a warm breeze carrying the salt smell of the ocean. The parking lot was busier now than when they'd arrived, with more vacation-goers stocking up for their beach stays. As they approached their SUV, Marcus clicked the key fob to open the trunk. The family worked together efficiently, a well-practiced routine from their regular grocery trips back home. Zara and Marcus Jr. handed bags to their parents, who arranged them carefully in the cargo area. "Can we go to the beach right after we unpack?" Marcus Jr. asked hopefully, passing another bag to his father. "Let's get settled in first, buddy," Marcus answered, smiling at his son's eagerness. "We got all week for the beach." The trunk was almost full when Angela noticed they'd forgotten paper towels. "I'll run back in quickly," she said, turning toward the store entrance. Marcus continued arranging the groceries with the kids, not knowing that their peaceful family vacation was about to take an unexpected turn. In just a few minutes, their ordinary afternoon would transform into something none of them could have anticipated, and their presence in Pine Harbor would soon become about much more than just a simple beach vacation. Angela had just disappeared into the store when 2 police cruisers suddenly pulled into the parking lot, their tires screeching against the asphalt. They stopped abruptly, positioning their vehicles to block the Thompsons' SUV from behind and the side. 4 officers quickly emerged, their hands already resting on their holsters. "Hands where we can see them," the first officer shouted, his voice sharp and commanding. "Everyone step away from the vehicle." Marcus felt his heart rate quicken, but years of FBI training kicked in. He slowly raised his hands, keeping them visible. Kids, stay calm and do exactly what I say, he spoke softly but firmly to Zara and Marcus Jr., who stood frozen beside the shopping cart. I said step away from the vehicle. The officer repeated, louder this time. Other shoppers stopped to stare, some pulling out their phones to record. Marcus moved carefully, positioning himself slightly in front of his children. Officers, my name is Marcus Thompson. These are my children, and we're just loading our groceries. We're here on vacation. 2 more police cars arrived, their lights flashing. The growing number of officers approached with their hands on their weapons, creating a semicircle around the family. Marcus Jr. began to cry quietly, while Zara gripped her brother's hand tightly. We received a report of suspicious activity, one officer announced, his badge reading Officer Brooks. Witnesses say you've been casing vehicles in the parking lot. Sir, we're simply loading our groceries into our own vehicle, Marcus explained calmly, though he could feel anger building in his chest. My wife just went back inside for paper towels. You can check our receipt. Sure, and I suppose that's your credit card too. Officer Brooks replied sarcastically, pointing to the shopping bags. Turn around and put your hands behind your back. Inside the store, Angela was just paying for the paper towels when another shopper rushed in, telling her what was happening outside. She ran to the entrance, her heart pounding. Through the glass doors, she saw her husband being handcuffed while their children stood terrified nearby. Angela burst outside, her phone already recording. What are you doing to my husband? She demanded, hurrying toward her family. 2 officers quickly moved to block her path. Ma'am, stay back, one warned, holding up his hand. That's my husband and those are my children. Angela's voice rose with fear and anger. We're just shopping for our vacation. What possible reason do you have for this? More people gathered around the scene. The elderly cashier who had checked them out earlier came outside, tried to tell the officers that the family had just made a legitimate purchase. Other shoppers began voicing their support for the Thompsons, but the police remained aggressive. Sir, I'm going to reach for my wallet very slowly, Marcus said steadily, despite the cold metal of handcuffs around his wrists. In it, you'll find my FBI credentials. Officer Brooks laughed. Yeah, right, and I'm the President of the United States. Marcus kept his voice level, even as he noticed Marcus Jr.'s shoulders shaking with sobs. Call the local FBI field office. They'll confirm my identity. I'm a federal agent, and you're making a serious mistake. Dad? Marcus Jr.'s voice quivered. I'm scared. It's okay, son, Marcus assured him, though his own heart was racing. Everything's going to be okay. Zara, keep holding your brother's hand. Angela continued filming, her hands trembling with rage and fear. This is racial profiling, plain and simple, she declared loudly, making sure her phone captured everything. You see a black family at a grocery store and automatically assume we're criminals. The crowd of onlookers had grown larger, with many recording the incident on their phones. Some were on their phones calling the police station to complain, while others shouted at the officers to release Marcus. Officer Brooks ignored the growing crowd, focusing on searching Marcus's pockets. When he pulled out Marcus's wallet, his expression remained skeptical, but as he opened it and saw the FBI badge, his face changed slightly. Call it in, Marcus said firmly. Call the field office right now. I'll wait. The tension in the parking lot was electric. The Thompson children huddled together, watching their handcuffed father. Angela kept her phone steady, documenting everything. And around them, the crowd of witnesses grew larger, their voices rising in protest against what they were witnessing. No one knew it yet, but this moment would soon explode far beyond the boundaries of Pine Harbor's grocery store parking lot. The situation in the parking lot grew more intense with each passing minute. While Officer Brooks spoke into his radio to verify Marcus's FBI credentials, other officers maintained their aggressive stance. The summer heat beat down on everyone, making an already tense situation even more uncomfortable. Angela's phone continued recording as she tried to comfort her children while simultaneously documenting everything. Look at what they're doing to your father, she said loudly enough for her phone to pick up. Look at how they're treating an FBI agent and his family just because of the color of our skin. Zara, usually the quiet teenager, suddenly found her voice. Mom, this isn't right, she said, tears running down her face. Dad didn't do anything wrong. We were just buying groceries. Her brother Marcus Jr. remained pressed against her side, his NASA shirt now wet with tears. More patrol cars arrived at the scene, bringing the total to 6 police vehicles. Their flashing lights created a chaotic dance of red and blue across the parking lot. The growing crowd of onlookers had now spilled onto the sidewalk, many holding their phones high to capture the scene. The elderly cashier, Mrs. Peters, tried again to intervene. Officers, please listen. I just checked them out not 10 minutes ago. They're a lovely family buying groceries for their vacation. I have their receipt right here. She waved the long paper strip in the air, her hands shaking with emotion. Officer Brooks ignored her, still waiting for confirmation from his radio. Marcus remained handcuffed, his back straight and his face composed, though his eyes betrayed his concern as he watched his family. The metal cuffs dug into his wrists, but he knew any sign of resistance would only make things worse. A young man from the crowd stepped forward, identifying himself as a local lawyer. I'm James Wilson, an attorney, he announced. I'm witnessing this entire incident, and I want to be clear that this family has done nothing to warrant this treatment. You're violating multiple constitutional rights. Sir, step back, one of the younger officers demanded, placing his hand on his taser. The crowd reacted immediately, their voices rising in protest. Someone in the back started chanting, "Let him go," and others quickly joined in. The sound echoed across the parking lot, drawing even more attention to the scene. Angela moved closer to her children, her phone still recording steadily. Marcus, she called to her husband, her voice strong despite her fear, don't say anything else until they verify your credentials. Everyone here is witnessing this. The groceries they had been loading still sat in their cart, and the SUV's trunk, ice cream melting in the summer heat. Marcus Jr. noticed this small detail, and it seemed to break something in him. Our ice cream is melting, he sobbed suddenly. We were just buying food for our vacation. His crying caught the attention of several news vans that had just pulled into the parking lot. Local reporters emerged with cameras and microphones, having received tips about the incident from witnesses. The scene was quickly transforming from a local disturbance into a media event. A sergeant finally arrived, his car marking the 7th police vehicle on the scene. He stepped out, looking concerned at the crowd size and the media presence. Walking briskly to Officer Brooks, he spoke in hushed but urgent tones. Sir, Marcus addressed the sergeant directly, his voice carrying the authority of his 15 years in federal law enforcement. I am a federal agent being detained without cause while shopping with my family. Every second you keep me in these cuffs is another violation of my rights and another trauma inflicted on my children. The sergeant's radio crackled to life. A voice came through, clear enough for those nearby to hear. Credentials confirmed. Marcus Thompson is indeed a special agent with the FBI's Washington field office. The mood shifted instantly. Officer Brooks's face drained of color as he realized the magnitude of their mistake. The sergeant quickly moved toward Marcus, keys in hand, to remove the handcuffs. The damage was already done. The Thompson children had watched their father being handcuffed and humiliated. Dozens of witnesses had filmed everything. News cameras were rolling, and Angela's phone had captured every moment, every word, every violation of their rights. As the handcuffs came off, Marcus rubbed his wrists and looked at his family. The vacation they had planned for months had transformed into something entirely different in less than 30 minutes. And somehow, he knew this was only the beginning. The Pine Harbor police officer's demeanor changed dramatically once they confirmed Marcus's FBI credentials. The sergeant, whose nameplate read Reynolds, now stood with his hands clasped nervously in front of him, his face showing growing concern as reporters continued arriving at the scene. Agent Thompson, sir, Sergeant Reynolds began, his voice notably softer than before. We sincerely apologize for this misunderstanding. If you'd like, we can escort you and your family. Misunderstanding? Angela interrupted, her phone still recording. You call racial profiling a misunderstanding? You handcuffed my husband in front of our children because someone reported suspicious activity while we were loading groceries. Marcus finally moved toward his family, his wrists still showing red marks from the handcuffs. Marcus Jr. immediately ran to him, wrapping his arms around his father's waist and sobbing into his shirt. Zara joined them, trying to act tough but unable to stop her own tears. "It's okay now," Marcus whispered to his children, holding them close. But he knew it wasn't okay. Nothing about this situation was okay. Officer Brooks, who had been so aggressive earlier, now stood awkwardly to the side, avoiding eye contact with everyone. The other officers began slowly backing away, some returning to their patrol cars, clearly wanting to distance themselves from the situation. A senior police official arrived in an unmarked car, having been called by the sergeant. He introduced himself as Chief Wilson and immediately tried to take control of the situation. "Agent Thompson, please accept our deepest apologies. If we could discuss this somewhere private." "Private?" Marcus's voice was calm but firm. "No, Chief Wilson. Everything about this incident needs to be public. Your officers profiled my family, threatened us with weapons, and handcuffed me in front of my children, all because we were shopping while black." The news reporters pressed closer, their cameras capturing every word. One reporter stepped forward, microphone extended. "Agent Thompson, Susan Chen from Channel 7 News. Can you tell us what happened here today?" Before Marcus could respond, his phone rang. Looking at the screen, he saw it was his FBI supervisor. Word had already reached the bureau about one of their agents being detained by local police. "Excuse me," Marcus said to the growing crowd, answering his phone. As he spoke quietly with his supervisor, Angela continued filming the scene, making sure to capture the now nervous faces of the officers who had treated them so badly just minutes before. Mrs. Peters, the elderly cashier, had brought out bottles of water for the Thompson children. "I'm so sorry, dears," she said softly, handing them the drinks. "I tried to tell them you were just shopping. I saw everything." Zara accepted the water but couldn't drink it, her hands still shaking. Marcus Jr. had finally stopped crying but refused to let go of his father's shirt, even as Marcus tried to handle this phone call. Chief Wilson attempted to speak with Angela, but she held up her hand to stop him. "My husband is an FBI agent with 15 years of experience. He has helped catch dangerous criminals and protected this country. Yet your officers saw nothing but the color of his skin. Our children watched their father being handcuffed like a criminal. Do you understand what that does to a child?" The chief's face reddened with embarrassment. More senior police officials were arriving now, along with someone from the mayor's office. The grocery store parking lot had become an impromptu press conference location. Marcus finished his phone call and turned to face the cameras. His FBI training kicked in as he spoke clearly and professionally. "Today, my family experienced firsthand why we need police reform in this country. I am a federal law enforcement officer, but before those credentials were confirmed, I was just another black man being criminalized for everyday activities." The reporters scribbled furiously in their notepads while camera operators adjusted their equipment to better capture his words. Chief Wilson looked increasingly uncomfortable as Marcus continued. "What happened here today wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a perfect example of systemic racism in law enforcement, and as both a federal agent and a black father, I cannot and will not let this incident be swept under the rug." Angela moved closer to her husband, still recording everything. Their grocery cart stood forgotten nearby, the ice cream now completely melted, a small but poignant symbol of how quickly their family vacation had transformed into something much bigger than themselves. 3 hours after the incident, the Thompson family sat in their beachfront rental house, but no one was thinking about the ocean view anymore. The living room felt heavy with tension as they processed the events of the afternoon. Their groceries, rescued from the melting chaos, had been delivered by apologetic store employees. None of them felt like eating. Marcus sat on the couch, his phone buzzing constantly with calls from FBI headquarters, civil rights attorneys, and news organizations. He had already spoken twice with his supervisor, and once with the FBI director himself. Angela sat nearby, uploading the video she had recorded to multiple social media platforms and cloud storage for safety. "Dad." Zara spoke up from her spot by the window. "Are those police officers going to get in trouble?" She had changed out of her vacation clothes into comfortable pajamas, though it was only 6 p.m. Marcus looked at his teenage daughter, seeing how the day's events had aged her. "Yes, honey, there will be consequences. The FBI's Civil Rights Division is already involved." Marcus Jr., who hadn't left his father's side since they arrived at the house, looked up from where he sat on the floor. "I don't want to go to the beach anymore," he said quietly. "What if those police officers come back?" Angela put down her phone and moved to comfort her son. "Baby, those officers won't come near us again. In fact, the police chief himself promised to have special security watching our house to make sure we're safe. That's supposed to make us feel better." Zara asked, her voice bitter. "More police watching us?" The doorbell rang, making everyone jump. Marcus approached cautiously, checking through the peephole. Outside stood Mayor Richardson of Pine Harbor, along with 2 members of the city council. "The mayor's here," Marcus announced to his family. "Should we let them in?" Angela stood up, straightening her clothes. "Let them see what their police did to our family. Let them see how their children are traumatized." Marcus opened the door, maintaining his professional composure despite his internal anger. Mayor Richardson, a middle-aged woman with graying hair, stepped in with an expression of genuine concern. "Agent Thompson, Mrs. Thompson," she began, "I cannot express how deeply sorry we are for what happened today. Our city prides itself on being welcoming to all visitors, and what occurred was inexcusable." Before anyone could respond, Marcus Jr. burst into fresh tears. "They put handcuffs on my daddy," he sobbed. "We were just buying food." The mayor's professional facade cracked as she watched the young boy cry. One of the council members, a black woman named Dr. Harris, moved to sit near the children. "Sometimes bad things happen that show us what needs to be fixed," Dr. Harris said gently. "Your daddy being brave today is going to help make sure this doesn't happen to other families." Angela's phone buzzed with notifications. Her video was already going viral, with hundreds of thousands of views and shares. National news networks were picking up the story. Mayor Richardson, Marcus said firmly, "My family came here for a peaceful beach vacation. Instead, my children watched their father being handcuffed for buying groceries. No apology can undo that trauma." The mayor nodded solemnly. "We understand. We're prepared to take immediate action. Officer Brooks and 2 others have already been placed on administrative leave. We're launching a full investigation, and we welcome FBI oversight." Zara stood up suddenly. "I want to go home," she announced. "I don't want to stay here anymore." The words hung heavy in the air. The vacation they had planned for months, their chance to relax and bond as a family, had been shattered in less than an hour at a grocery store parking lot. "No," Marcus finally said, surprising everyone. "We're not going to let them drive us away. We paid for this house, we have every right to be here, and we're going to stay." Angela reached for his hand, squeezing it supportively. "Are you sure? Our children need to see that we don't run from injustice," Marcus explained, looking at Zara and Marcus Jr. "We stand our ground, we fight for what's right, and we make sure changes happen." The mayor and council members exchanged glances, recognizing that this incident would transform their small beach town forever. Outside, the sun was setting over the ocean, its peaceful beauty a stark contrast to the turmoil this family was experiencing on what should have been their first day of vacation. By morning, the Thompson family's story had exploded across the nation. Angela's video had reached over 2 million views overnight, and news vans lined the quiet beach street outside their rental house. The hashtag #ShoppingWhileBlack was trending nationwide, with people sharing similar stories of racial profiling. Marcus sat at the rental house's kitchen table early that morning, watching his children pick at their breakfast. Neither Zara nor Marcus Jr. had slept well, plagued by nightmares of the previous day's events. Angela was upstairs, speaking with Good Morning America producers who wanted to feature their story. "Your phone is ringing again, Dad," Zara pointed out, pushing her untouched cereal around the bowl. Marcus checked the caller ID. It was Ben Robertson, his old friend from the FBI Academy who now worked in the Civil Rights Division. He answered, putting it on speaker so his family could hear. "Marcus, we're taking this seriously." Ben's voice filled the kitchen. "We've opened a formal investigation into the Pine Harbor Police Department. This isn't just about yesterday. We're looking into their past complaints, their training procedures, everything." Marcus Jr. perked up slightly. "Are the mean police officers going to jail?" Ben's voice softened. "Hey, little man. We're going to make sure what happened to your dad never happens to another family, okay?" Angela came downstairs, still on her phone. "The governor just released a statement," she announced. She's ordering a state-level investigation into racial profiling by police departments across the state. Outside, they could hear protesters gathering. Local civil rights groups had organized a peaceful demonstration in front of the police station, just a few blocks away. Signs reading "Justice for the Thompsons" and "Black Families Matter" were visible from their window. Marcus's supervisor called next. "Thompson, I know this isn't what you planned for your vacation, but we need you to do a press conference. Your unique position as both a victim of racial profiling and an FBI agent makes your voice particularly powerful." Before Marcus could respond, someone knocked on their door. Through the peephole, they saw Reverend James Marshall, a prominent civil rights leader who had flown in overnight from Atlanta. "Agent Thompson," Reverend Marshall greeted them warmly when they opened the door. "Your family's experience has become a catalyst for change. People are listening. We need to make this moment count." Zara, who had been quiet all morning, suddenly spoke up. "Dad, remember when you taught me about Rosa Parks? How one person's stand against injustice can change things?" Marcus looked at his daughter proudly, seeing understanding begin to replace fear in her eyes. "That's right, baby. Sometimes change starts with one incident that opens everyone's eyes." Angela's phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Mrs. Peters, the kind cashier from yesterday. Local community members had organized a support rally for the family at the beach that afternoon. Over 500 people had already confirmed they would attend. "Marcus," Angela said softly, showing him her screen, "look at these comments on the video. So many people sharing similar stories. This is bigger than us now." Marcus gathered his family in the living room. "I need to ask you all something important. We can go home today, let the FBI and lawyers handle everything. Or we can stay, speak up, and try to make real change happen. It's a family decision." Marcus Jr. clutched his NASA shirt, the same one from yesterday. "Will it help other kids not see their dads get handcuffs?" "Yes, son, that's exactly what it might do." "Then we should stay," the boy said firmly, showing bravery beyond his years. Zara nodded in agreement. "We can't let them win by making us leave." Angela reached for Marcus's hand. "Whatever we do it together." Marcus took a deep breath and called his supervisor back. "Set up the press conference," he said. "But I want to do it right here in Pine Harbor, and I want my whole family beside me. America needs to see exactly who these officers terrorized yesterday: a family on vacation, a federal agent, two innocent kids, all judged simply by the color of their skin." As he spoke, more protesters gathered outside, their chants for justice carrying across the beach town. News helicopters circled overhead, and social media continued to explode with support. The Thompson family's ruined vacation had become something none of them expected. A pivotal moment in the ongoing fight for racial justice in America. 1 week had passed since the incident at Harbor Market, and Pine Harbor had become the center of a national conversation about racial profiling. The Thompson family, still in their beach rental, now found themselves at the heart of major changes sweeping through the small coastal town. Marcus sat in the Pine Harbor City Hall, wearing his FBI suit instead of vacation clothes. Before him sat the entire city council, police leadership, and a team of federal investigators. The room was packed with media representatives, their cameras clicking constantly. "Let me be very clear," Marcus spoke into the microphones, his voice steady and strong. "In the past week, we've uncovered 67 similar complaints against the Pine Harbor Police Department. 67 families who were harassed, detained, or threatened while doing ordinary things." Angela sat in the front row, holding hands with both children. Marcus Jr. had stopped having nightmares, but now he drew pictures of police cars with big X's through them. Zara had started writing a blog about their experience, which had already gained thousands of followers. Chief Wilson, looking much older than he had a week ago, stood to address the room. "Based on our internal investigation and the FBI's findings, I am announcing my resignation, effective immediately. Additionally, Officers Brooks, Stevens, and Martinez have been terminated from their positions." A murmur ran through the crowd. Cell phones rose to record this historic moment. "That's not enough," Angela called out, standing up. "Your entire department needs retraining. Your policies need to change. Your hiring practices need to be examined." "Dr. Harris," The black city council member who had visited them that first night stepped forward with a thick document. "We're implementing the Pine Harbor Police Reform Act," she announced. "New training requirements, body cameras for all officers, community oversight boards, and mandatory bias training. Agent Thompson and his family have helped us design these changes." In the week since the incident, the Thompson children had also found their voices. Zara had spoken at her first rally 2 days ago, telling hundreds of people how it felt to watch her father being handcuffed. Marcus Jr. had appeared on a children's news program, explaining to other kids why what happened was wrong. The changes we're announcing today, Marcus continued, include a new civilian review board. This board will have real power to investigate complaints and recommend discipline. And yes, I've agreed to serve as a special advisor to this board. Officer Brooks and the other fired officers sat in the back of the room, required to attend as part of their termination proceedings. They looked uncomfortably at the floor as Marcus detailed their history of complaints. "We've also discovered," Marcus added, "that Pine Harbor PD has been targeting tourists of color for years. Many families never reported it because they were just passing through. That stops today." Angela's viral video had now reached over 20 million views. Major civil rights organizations had taken up their cause, sending lawyers and advocates to help reform the department. The elderly cashier, Mrs. Peters, had become something of a local hero for trying to intervene, and she sat proudly in the audience. "My family came here for a vacation," Marcus said, his voice growing emotional. "Instead, we found a mission. My children learned a harsh lesson about racism in America, but they're also learning about the power of speaking up and demanding change." The doors at the back of the hall opened, and more people streamed in. Former victims of police profiling in Pine Harbor had returned to tell their stories. Some had traveled from across the country after seeing the Thompson story on the news. Marcus Jr. tugged on his mother's sleeve. "Mom, look," he whispered, pointing to his father. "Dad's not just an FBI agent anymore. He's like a superhero fixing things." Angela smiled through tears. "He always was, baby. But now everyone else can see it too." As Marcus concluded his presentation, he unveiled one final change. The Pine Harbor Police Department would now require all officer candidates to spend time living with and learning from families of different racial backgrounds before being hired. "Real change," Marcus said, looking directly at the cameras, "comes when we stop seeing each other as threats and start seeing each other as humans. My family's vacation was ruined, but maybe, just maybe, we can help create a world where other families won't have to go through what we did." The room erupted in applause. Outside, supporters cheered. And in the back, Officer Brooks finally looked up, meeting Marcus's eyes for the first time since that day in the parking lot, seeing not a suspicious person, but a man who had turned injustice into inspiration. 6 months after the incident at Harbor Market, the Thompson family returned to Pine Harbor. This time, they weren't alone. They were accompanied by news crews, civil rights leaders, and hundreds of supporters gathered to witness the changes their ordeal had sparked. Marcus stood at a podium outside the newly renamed Community Safety Center, which had replaced the old police station. The autumn breeze ruffled his suit jacket as he addressed the crowd. Behind him stood a diverse group of new police recruits, all graduates of the reform training program he had helped design. 6 months ago, my family came here for a beach vacation, Marcus began, his voice carrying across the attentive crowd. Today, we return to see how one moment of injustice has transformed into lasting change. Angela sat in the front row with Zara and Marcus Jr., all three wearing t-shirts that read "Changemakers." Marcus Jr. no longer flinched when he saw police cars, thanks partly to the healing sessions he'd attended with other children who had witnessed similar incidents. Zara had become a youth activist, speaking at schools about standing up against racism. In the past 6 months, Marcus continued, Pine Harbor has become a model for police reform. 28 other cities have adopted our new training programs. Over 50 police departments have requested our community engagement guidelines. The statistics appeared on a large screen behind him. 100% of Pine Harbor police officers now wore body cameras. Complaints of racial profiling had dropped to 0. The new Civilian Oversight Board had reviewed 89 past cases. 6 former officers had been prosecuted for past misconduct. The department had hired 15 new officers from diverse backgrounds. Mrs. Peters, the cashier who had tried to help them that day, now served as chair of the Civilian Oversight Board. She stood proudly with other board members, wearing her official badge. But numbers don't tell the whole story, Marcus said, gesturing to his family. Real change is measured in human terms. My son Marcus Jr., who once had nightmares about police, just last week gave a tour of his school to our new community officers. Marcus Jr. waved shyly as people applauded. He wore a new NASA shirt, but this time it was paired with a Junior Police Academy badge, part of the new youth outreach program. Zara stepped up to the podium next, her voice strong and clear. "What happened to our family was terrible," she said, reading from a speech she had written herself. "But we turned that terrible moment into something powerful. My blog now has readers in 50 countries, all sharing stories and working for change." Angela wiped tears from her eyes as she watched her daughter speak. Her viral video had become a teaching tool in police academies nationwide. She had recently accepted a position as a consultant for police community relations, turning their family's trauma into a force for education. Officer Brooks' replacement, a young black woman named Officer Carter, stepped forward to speak. "The Thompson family showed us what needed to change," she said. "Now we work every day to earn our community's trust, not demand it through force." The ceremony continued with the unveiling of a new monument, a simple plaque that read, "On this spot, one family's courage sparked a revolution in community safety. May we never forget the lesson. Justice requires vigilance, understanding, and change." Marcus Jr. tugged on his father's sleeve during the unveiling. "Dad," he whispered, "can we go to the beach after this? I'm not scared anymore." Marcus smiled, remembering their ruined vacation 6 months ago. "Yes, son, and this time we'll make nothing but happy memories." As the ceremony ended, people gathered around the Thompsons, sharing stories of how their case had inspired changes in their own communities. A group of children presented Marcus Jr. with a handmade cape, calling him a junior justice warrior. Later that afternoon, the Thompson family finally got their beach day. As they walked along the shore, they passed several police officers on community patrol. The officers smiled and waved, knowing exactly who this family was and what they had accomplished. "Look," Zara pointed out, "no one's staring at us suspiciously. No one's calling the police. We're just a family enjoying the beach." Angela squeezed Marcus's hand as they watched their children play in the waves. "We didn't just change Pine Harbor," she said softly. "We changed ourselves too. We're stronger now." Marcus nodded, watching a police car drive peacefully past their beach spot. "Sometimes," he replied, "the worst moments in our lives become the catalysts for the best changes. We came here as victims 6 months ago. We return now as champions of change." As the sun set over Pine Harbor Beach, the Thompson family had finally gotten their vacation, not the one they originally planned, but one that had helped change a nation's conversation about justice, dignity, and the power of standing up for what's right.